Thank you, Richard. Good afternoon, everyone. It is fantastic to see so many people here today, and thank you for taking the time to join us. And I'm delighted to share the stage this afternoon with our two keynote speakers. Together, we're going to discuss how to maximise the benefits of resource efficiency, and I hope you'll participate in that debate as well. You've seen today's agenda, which Richard put up, and I'm obviously on, so I'll begin. I'd like to talk about a number of things with you this afternoon. Firstly, what's happening at RAP. Something about the direction we're heading in, what a world with zero waste might look like, how business resource efficiency can help us get there, some insights into two pieces of research that I think you'll find interesting, and finally a reminder of how we can all benefit from working together to make a difference. Whilst I was preparing this talk, I noted that some of the facts and figures that I'm actually going to talk to you about this afternoon are really fascinating, and I hope you'll find them so as well. So let's get down to detail. Firstly, I'll address the issue which I suspect all of you are wondering about, budgets. Well, let's not beat about the bush. We all know about the budget deficit, the recent spending review, and the impact this is going to have on all of us for many years to come. But what does it mean for RAP? Well, undoubtedly, it means that we will have to reduce our spending in some areas, and we will have to change the way in which we do some things. There's no two ways about that. But I'm sure we will need to make some difficult choices. But honestly, I really do welcome the fact that this will help to keep RAP nimble. The changes will help our continued focus on delivering value for money, which has to be a good thing for everyone. We're talking to DEFRA and our other funders at the moment about our funding, so it really would be premature to go into any of the detail. But I'm absolutely confident that we are going to have a lot to do going forward. And regardless of the funding situation, we're working hard on our next business plan at the moment. We want to make sure that is really flexible so it can respond to changes in priorities and the changes in budgets. And that goes for all our funding governments, Scotland, England, Wales and Northern Ireland. And that leads me on to my second point, the direction in which RAP is heading. From 2011, there's going to be a significant shift up the waste hierarchy with more focus on proactive areas such as waste prevention, better design, and improved resource efficiency. I want us to start to explore more ways of tackling the whole issue of consumption. And that's quite a tricky area to get into, but maybe there's something we can do through some of our responsibility deals, working with businesses, to reduce the overall use of resources. We'll continue to address certain areas of recycling, in particular business waste from SMEs. Food waste will continue to be very important to us, preventing it in the first place, and then treating it with methods such as anaerobic digestion to recover energy, so we continue to reduce the amount of waste that's sent to landfill. Reducing food waste still represents one of the most significant things we can tackle in terms of improving resource efficiency. Responsibility deals, or voluntary agreements as some of you might be more familiar, will drive much of our work. We know from experience that these initiatives have a major practical part to play in delivering resource efficiency. As you know, RAP is funded by our governments. That means that by necessity we are driven to some extent by the priorities of our funders and the constraints of budgets. But I think it's an important part of our role to have a focus and an understanding about the overall journey and where we're trying to get to. So what would a world with no waste look like? How will we get there? What needs to be different to make it happen? Earlier this year, the World Business Council for Sustainable Development produced a report which I found very inspiring. It was produced by leading businesses and started to map out how we might get to a sustainable world by 2050. It covers a whole range of areas, for example, people's values, human development, economy, agriculture, energy and buildings, and one of the strands was materials, with the objective of getting to zero waste. And the report clearly shows how this wide range of interrelated issues all need to change and develop if we're to progress to a more sustainable world. If you have a chance to look at the report, please do so. It really is worth a read, and you'll find a link to it from our conference website. You shouldn't be surprised to see parallels between it and the work we're doing at RAP. What it boils down to, as with all great movements, is everyone being clear about the role they have to play in that. There are a whole range of things that need to happen, including getting the right policy framework, developments in public awareness and understanding, getting the right business drivers, having the right support mechanisms in place, just to name a few. And I'm sure the report will stimulate a debate about what some of those things are. Let me be absolutely clear. Everyone in this room has a role in working towards zero waste, from those at the policy level to those at the coalface of everyday businesses. I know that it's a well-used cliché to talk about shared journeys, but clichés usually are born out of reality. And the reality is that working together, in partnership, helps us to go further and faster, to quote the Secretary of State. I'll talk more about responsibility deals later, but I just want to say now that they absolutely do work. We've seen this through the Quartile Commitment, halving waste to landfill, the Federation House Commitment, the list goes on. The voluntary approach allows industry to use RAP's expertise to come up with its own innovations and then share that best practice, all without the burden of legislation. If necessary, we must find ways of combining our intellectual and financial resources, but together we can do it. So how can resource efficiency help us to go towards that vision of zero waste? Well, those of you who were here last year might remember that RAP unveiled a piece of research on this very question. It showed that implementing 13 quick win strategies could contribute as much as 10% of the target reduction in UK domestic greenhouse gas emissions by 2020. For those of you who weren't here or would like a refresher, those production and consumption strategies can be found on our annual conference website, so please take a look. This year, our research assesses the way those same strategies could address other issues as well as climate change. So, for example, how they could help the wider environment, or food and minerals scarcity concerns. Only last month, the UK National Security Strategy listed short to medium-term disruption in international supplies of resources such as food and minerals essential to the UK as a Tier 3 priority. To give that some context, that's the same level of risk as disrupted oil supplies. The security strategy also says that by 2030, the population increase will mean that global demand for food and energy will rise by up to 50%, and for water by up to 30%. Critically, it also says that resource scarcity increases the likelihood of conflict. Last December, RAP recognised the need to have a better understanding of material and water use in the UK and how resource efficiency could help reduce consumption of these resources. And today we're announcing the results of that research. It's very timely given the current media interest in rare earths and China's dominance in the area. So let me share some of those fascinating findings to help you better appreciate the opportunities to address this worrying situation. Excluding fossil fuels and water, the UK currently uses over 520 million tonnes of resources every year, including scarce materials such as rare metals which are used in everyday products but are only mined and produced in a few areas of the world. We've looked at how implementing the 13 strategies I mentioned earlier could affect materials accounting for half of that tonnage and found that we could reduce the use of those by 38 million tonnes a year. Our reliance on specific rare materials could actually be reduced by up to 25%. The UK's water extraction could be reduced by almost 6%, mainly by tackling food waste. And our overall ecological footprint could be reduced by up to 6%. And all of this could be done by 2020. It's obviously very challenging, and some of the approaches will be very difficult to achieve. For example, it's finding business models which support lifetime optimization, reuse, and repair. None of that's easy. I don't think any of us can think it's going to be easy to do it. But we must all aspire to significant reductions if we're to reduce our reliance on vulnerable supply chains and tackle waste. And wouldn't that put us in a great position to meet the 2050 vision for zero waste? As we move up the waste hierarchy, we're considering our role in reuse and are committed to helping others to reduce waste. We'll continue to work with businesses, civil society, and others to reduce food waste. We knew this was an important issue in terms of climate change, financial cost and landfill, but now we also know the extent of the water impact. So while you're thinking about food and water, I'd like to tell you about a piece of related research which WRAP is due to publish soon. We've been working with World Wildlife Fund to look at which foods are responsible for the most amount of wasted water. And to give you a taster of the results, let me tell you about potatoes. Very mundane subject. Avoidable potato waste in the UK is responsible for 20 million cubic metres of wasted water in the UK. That's the same amount as 10 times the amount of bottled water that was sold in the UK last year. And that's just potatoes. A further 12.5 million cubic metres is wasted abroad. Those are astonishing amounts just from potatoes. If you think about other wastes as well, the overall figures are enormous. From the author of the same report, we've worked up some startling facts about the most water-efficient countries to produce foods. And interestingly, from a water efficiency perspective, we've discovered that rice is actually more efficiently produced in parts of the USA than it is in traditional paddy fields in Southeast Asia. And how about this? The UK holds all the cards when it comes to growing carrots and potatoes. In a world where water is increasingly limited, the UK also has a highly competitive advantage in producing peas, oats, wheat, barley, and get this, peppers. Perhaps some of it isn't so surprising, but it is still valuable information when it comes to procuring supply chains and reducing waste. I hope you can see how these findings really chime with some of the major issues that the world faces at the moment, not just the UK. And this piece of research will be available later this month, so keep an eye open for it. The penultimate subject I'd like to talk about today is how businesses are embracing resource efficiency, or in some cases, how they aren't. I'd like to think about why they aren't and what we could do to make it easier for them. We all know there are lots of financial benefits to be had, so we must take a hard, long look in the mirror and ask why business resource efficiency isn't happening as quickly as we'd like it to. Perhaps it's about engagement. Do we need to do more to raise awareness about the benefits? Do we need to somehow make it easier? Do we need to make the relevance more obvious? How can we do more to demonstrate the benefits? What sort of role can we really have when markets and supply chains are increasingly global? Should we focus on a closed-loop economy just for the UK? I'm not going to pretend that I've got all the answers to these questions, but I promise you they are questions that we are taking very seriously as we shape our plans for the future. And that leads me nicely on to my final point. We pride ourselves on being an organisation which raises its eyes from the day-to-day business of policy implementation, considers where we should be heading, and then works with its partners to ensure that we go in the right direction. Now, more than ever, we need to work together. We want to know about your concerns. We want to know what matters to you. We want to hear your suggestions and solutions. And we want to know when we're getting it wrong. Under this government, more power and opportunity is being placed into people's hands to work together to solve problems at all sorts of levels. By drawing on some of the great people working at WRAP, together we can become more resource efficient. Together we can realise the economic and environmental benefits of that resource efficiency. But we'll only achieve that together if we talk to each other. If you take one thing away from what I've said this afternoon, then please let it be this. We generally want to work with you. We want the communication to be two-way and the debate to be constructive. So drop us a line, pick up the phone, come and see us, send us a carrier pigeon if you prefer. We're still working on thought transfer, but we are on Twitter and Facebook, so there's really no excuse. But please do something rather than nothing. That way we can all go further and faster than we've ever done before. Thank you for listening. And